We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to love, love, love. We return again to love.
Boker Or. It was strange to wake up this morning, and it kind of felt like I was in Florida, very thick air and warm, unusual for a fall morning in New England. I suppose that's one of the lessons that starts this day, is that everything, not that we're all in Florida, but rather that everything feels just different. And yet, it's Yom Kippur. Where else would we be but here in this space that we create? through a whole variety of sound waves and light waves, and how that all happens. Someone's tried to explain it to me 1,000 times. I'm still not exactly sure. I just know this, that God willing, it's working for you, not simply through the signal being strong and the light being good, but working for you as in being an opening point for your heart, an opening point to begin to, well, not actually begin, but to continue to acknowledge the work of the Day of Atonement, a day for sitting and reflecting, contemplating who we are and who we want to become, the world we live in and the world we want it to be, a way to reach deep for hope and to find that hope, and then not only to live in it, but to be that hope. This is part of a marathon that we began on Rosh Hashanah. And in this time, I invite you to use it, embrace it, be challenged by it. And I know as I say that some of you are nodding as your children are running back and forth, and you're keeping one eye on the screen, and you're getting the Fruit Loops with the other hand. I get that. We all get that. And we, this team of people who have been devoted to making sure this moment rolls out to you in a seamless and beautiful way, we get that. We're just happy that you're literally and, God willing, spiritually tuned in. And to the best of your ability and the best of our ability, we will move forward. I did neglect to tell you that if you were wondering where the page numbers are, what those numbers are at the bottom of your screen, you will be able to find guidance that way as well. It is a deeply emotional time. This is my 24th year doing this with you, sharing this day with you. And it's hard to differentiate in memory one year from the other, because the things that remain constant has always been the sound of voices in the foyer. It has been the people that illegally save their places by putting their taluses on the back of the chairs. It's all of that, you know. It's just, and it's jarring not to have the din of people, your din, your conversation, your happiness, your sadness coming in, hoping to connect with everyone around you. We're all there, we're here, and this is the reality that we're constructing. This is one of the many worlds that we live in. And I hope and trust that we will figuratively hold hands together through this day. And when we get to the other side, it feels like a long time from now, but it's going to zoom by, small z. It's going to zoom by. And when we get there and when we hear the Tekiah Gedolah, it'll be a call of memory as it will be a call to action. And that's how we do this. That's how we continue to live in love within a community. This is the chance, if you are wearing a talit, but you forgot you were going to wear it, to run and go get it. And when you find it and then you bring it back with you to wherever you're participating in Yom Kippur this morning, just if you'll take the moment once you've put it on, just to take a moment and to feel the the talit on your shoulders as a physical reminder of God's presence and a physical reminder of all of our presence together. This sense of warmth, sense of reassurance, the embrace of a talit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef batzitzit.
all continue to find creative, loving, maybe even fun ways to cope with the restrictions that we're under, because we aren't going back. There's not going to be any return to normal in the foreseeable future. And if we dwell on that as the expectation, I think we'll lose sight of the opportunities in front of us right now. So I hope, myself included, that I can wake up and embrace whatever challenges the day takes on with a little bit more joy and some creativity about how to make it the best it can be.
This year has obviously been very challenging. I am challenging myself to think about it through the lens of, what does this give me the opportunity to do that I wouldn't have done otherwise? And I actually just read an article recently about a woman who, I think she may have been a quadriplegic, she was in a wheelchair, and she was able to attend her first Seder because she was invited via Zoom. And she said that she had never been invited to a Seder because people just assumed that she wouldn't be able to go. And for me, that's really an inspiring story about, okay, how can we do this differently, but still make it a rich experience? And, you know, it reminds me of Passover this year looked very different for me. I, for the first time, prepared my own complete Seder. I was living with my in-laws who are not Jewish, you know, and I led the Seder. My kids were obviously like very involved, but it looked different, but it was still joyful and brought a sense of connection. And so I approach the high holidays in the same way and think about engaging with my family who are not local, who I would never really be able to enjoy the high holidays with. And maybe we can do something via Zoom so that we can feel connected. So it's different, but it creates an opportunity to kind of change the lens.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or u'varei choshech, osei shalom u'varei et hakol, ha'me'ir la'aretz v'ledarim aleha barachamim, uv'tuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chokhma asita, malah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, v'al me'orei or she'asita yefa'arucha sela, or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkei chulanu meheira le'oro. Baruch ata Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet.
The thing that I have always loved about being Jewish is that the basis of it is about being a good person and being responsible in the world. That feels to me like a message that I love for my children and grandchildren to have. And it helps now because there's a lot of people who say that's what they're doing, but they're not. I am embarrassingly late to be learning about the racism in our society. And I hope that the awakening that so many of us are having will last, that we'll figure out how to translate it into something real, and that it will be the beginning of real change in this country.
I think we're all feeling so stretched by the things that we've had to sacrifice in this moment, or the extra duties we've been called to take on, or the sense of isolation or loss of connection. And I think if we can keep in mind that there's a greater goal here, saving lives, possibly our own, but very likely the neighbor or even the grocery clerk. I think if we can keep in mind that there's a much larger mission here, I think that we will all feel more mobilized and more at peace about what we're being asked to do. I think that there have been many, many lights among all the darkness in these moments. I think, for example, about people who rallied to produce masks or face shields, or even the little nose strips that kept nurses and doctors from developing blisters around the edges of their mask. All of the people in their garages or kitchen tables or basements who were making the personal protective equipment that have helped people stay safe during these times. Those are just a few of the lights that come to mind. And of course, the heroics of all of our healthcare friends are quite amazing, but so are the people who showed up to stock the grocery shelves. So I think we've had many examples of people who go beyond themselves, and I think if we can all remember how to do that, even in a daily basis, in the moments, I think it will help us also feel like we're not getting stuck. We're not mired in the moment quite as much. We're doing something actually that will help.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei feleh, shira chadasha, shibechu geolim lishimcha asfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu v'imlechu v'amru, Adonai limloch le'olam va'ed. Tzur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, uvtechinu mecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael, golinu Adonai tzvaot shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai.
ופי יגיד תהילתך.
אנננננננננה אדוני. אנננננננה שפתי תפתח. אנננננננה ופי יגיד. ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואמהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו לחיים מלך חפץ בחיים וכותבנו בספר החיים למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, ברוך שמו, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אמן. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אמן. ונתן תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום. ובוא תינשא מלכותך, ויכון בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת. בראש השנה יכתבון, יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, יכתבון, בראש השנה יכתבון, יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, יכתבון. And who by fire, who by water, who in the sunshine, who in the nighttime, who by high ordeal, who by common trial, who in your merry, merry month of May, who by very slow decay, and who shall I say is calling? And who in her lonely slip, who by barbiturate, who in these realms of love, who by something blunt, and who by avalanche, who by powder, who for his greed, who for his hunger, and who shall I say is calling? And who by brave ascent, who by accident, who in solitude, who in this mirror, and who by his lady's command, who by his own hand, who in mortal chains, who in power, and who shall I say is calling? Teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah, ma'avirin et roa hagezerah. לחיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה. ניזכר וניכתב לפניך. אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ולשלום.
ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
עושה השלום.
Amen.
If I were called in last minute to give a message at the Yom Kippur service, I would probably talk about forgiveness and the importance of forgiving in life, because when you hold on to things, nobody can move past them, and if you let go and move on, everyone can move forward.
No, I think I look back, and whether we will admit it or not, we've all done some things that we're not proud of in the last year, if not longer. We all have, whether we want to admit it or not.
How do you think about what's the difference between granting forgiveness and asking for forgiveness? It's complicated. I think asking is a lot harder for me than granting. I think if people, anyone that would do that would be so close, and I know that if they're asking, then it's really inside of me. It's good to give, but for me to ask is very hard. Maybe I don't want to admit I need to, but obviously, there are times that we all remember and should really be thoughtful about.
When I hear Avinu Malkeinu, it makes me realize how many things I may hold on to and how many things I may take for granted, and that, like, if I get hung up on the little things in life, like, that I can't get hung up on the little things in life, that there are so many greater things that I need to be focusing on and looking towards, that when I get hung up on something that makes me mad or angry, and I don't forgive, and I hold a grudge, that no one is winning. And it also makes me thankful for everyone who's willing to forgive me for anything that I've done, because I'm not perfect, and I know that I've done a lot of things that I regret, and when I'm forgiven, it makes me feel like I'm able to forgive.
What exactly is forgiveness, and how do we practice it? There are books about it, and essentially, I think no matter what particular structure an author creates to answer the many puzzles of forgiveness, it must begin with an open heart and honesty, vulnerability. It must be wide open. Hard to do, really hard to do, but unless we're honest with ourselves, nothing about our relationships can really be complete. Forgiveness cannot be complete if we're not really willing to acknowledge the feelings that we have, the wrongs we have committed through omission and commission, the things that we wish we had done, the things we wish we hadn't done. Yom Kippur is about daring to be honest with ourselves, and through that honesty then being open and honest with the people around us. That they'll love us even when we acknowledge how imperfect we really are. That it's possible for us to put down a grudge, to put down an anger that in so many ways has defined us. I think certainly in my life, and I would assume for so many of you as well, there have been periods when the anger is what keeps it fresh and real. But anger, in the end, is self-immolating. In the end, we destroy a part of ourselves. And to be convinced that it's possible to be something more than that anger, to continue after feeling wronged, that's really a test of our courage and conviction and our belief that to live as open-heartedly as we can is a way to experience the world the best way we can. And quite frankly, when we become our best self, those people who are around us understand that and absorb that as well. To be our best self is to enable others to be their best selves. I know it's a simple equation, but how we work that out, how we put the broken pieces together again, that's the art. That's the challenge. And that's what we do here. And so that's what this vidui section that we're about to engage in is all about. About honesty, about not starting fresh. We can't really quite do that. But we can apply a fresh coat on the canvas. The canvas still exists, but on that canvas, to commit to painting something newer, brighter, filled with hope and with promise.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, tavo lefanecha, tefilateinu, ve'avetit alam mitchinateinu, she'en anachnu azefanim ukshei oref lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu tzadikim anachnu ve'lo chatanu aval anachnu chatanu Avinu chatanu pishanu.
Ashamnu,
Ashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Bagadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Dibarnu Dofi, Ayalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai, lai.
Hevinu,
Heaven Avinu,
V'hirshanu,
V'hirshanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Chamasnu,
Chamasnu,
Tafalnu Shaker,
Tafalnu Shaker,
Ay, alay, lay, lay, yala, la, lay, 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 yala, la, lay, lay, lay. Yatsnura,
Yatsnura,
Kizavnu,
Kisavnu,
Latsnu,
Latsnu,
Maradnu,
Maradnu,
Niatsnu,
Niatsnu,
Ay, alay, lay, lay, yala, la, lay, 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 yala, la, lay, lay, lay. Sararnu,
Saranu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Ashanu,
Hashanu,
Sararnu,
Saranu,
Kishinu Oref,
Kishinu Oref,
Ay, la, lay, 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 yala, la, lay, 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 yala, la, lay, lay, lay. Rashanu,
Rashanu,
Shichatnu,
Shichatnu,
Tiavnu,
Tiavnu,
Ta'inu,
Ta'inu,
Titanu,
Titanu, ay, 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 ay,
Yala, la, lay, 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 yala, la, lay, lay, lay. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'ones uveratzon, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבלי דעת, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בריצת רגליים להרע. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחוזק יד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזלזול הורים ומורים. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בקשיות עורף. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכחש ובכזב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשיח שפתותינו, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין. ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקת עול, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במאכל ומשתה. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי עריות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באימוץ הלב. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנשך ובמרבית, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במשוא ומתן. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהרהור הלב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברכילות. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכפת שוחד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם. ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו.
תחנונים אתה שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו חוספי רחם עלינו
Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept, embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice. Treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu masim, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu masim.
As I try to do every day, a few months ago I was checking out the news, and I came upon a late-breaking story that a black man had been killed in custody in Minneapolis. Dear God, I thought to myself, not again. In retrospect, it is telling that the death of a black man at the hands of police was common enough and fraught with so much that is so wrong to elicit that response again. I clicked on the link. It was the story that a man named George Floyd, who was accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill to buy a pack of cigarettes, was wrestled to the ground, his hands zip-tied. Officer Derek Chauvin then firmly placed his knee on George Floyd's neck and kept it there for at least 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Officer Chauvin did not remove his knee even after Mr. Floyd lost consciousness for a full minute and 20 seconds after paramedics arrived at the scene. It was horrifying. Embedded in the story was a link to video footage of the incident recorded by a bystander. And there on my screen is this police officer with his knee on the neck of this black man lying on the ground. And you can hear him begging for mercy. He's saying, I can't breathe. Then this grown man is crying for his mother. Bystanders are calling to the police, telling them, look at him. You're killing him. Just leave him alone. What are you doing? At a certain point in this footage, Officer Chauvin puts his hand in his pocket as his knee continues to rest on George Floyd's neck. Nonchalant. Just another day on the job. George Floyd's murder engendered a wide range of reactions from people of all colors all over the world. The injustice, the absolute disregard for human life, human dignity, the presence and collusion of other officers on the scene who also pinned him to the ground and did nothing to intervene to save George Floyd's life, lit a fuse. The pressure cooker of COVID and quarantine guaranteed the explosion we witnessed in the days and weeks and months since. We see injustice played out over and over again. We've heard too many stories. We've watched too many videos of so many black folk being cruelly beaten, slammed to the ground, shot, killed. We've listened to politicians belittle, demean, and otherwise dismiss the real pain and fear of black people in this country and the concerns of their friends and allies. This has become so persuasive that incidents appear with memes that say things like jogging while black, the crime of driving while black, the crime of sleeping while black, to demonstrate that the simplest individual liberties are at great risk just because of the color of the skin of a citizen of this country. But racism is not just about the criminal justice system. Of course, while COVID has been so pervasive and has had such an impact on the world, there's no question that communities of color have been impacted far above the percentage of their presence in the population. The virus is colorblind. Society is not. For ever in this country, racial and ethnic minorities have long been disproportionately impacted by social determinants of health, leading to greater numbers of jobs lost, illnesses suffered, and deaths mourned. Barriers to health include housing discrimination, low pay, high-risk jobs, barriers to health care, poor education. All of these are examples of systemic racism. On this day, on this Yom Kippur, day of judgment, of atonement, we as a congregation must step up and acknowledge through all of the noise and the pain and the hyperbole that we cannot stand idle while our neighbor bleeds. There are powerfully compelling reasons for we as a Jewish community to respond to the pervasive existence of systemic racism in America. We are told 36 times in the Torah to treat others, particularly those who are ostracized and persecuted, with empathy and respect. God says, "You shall love them as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." 36 times. And then the rabbis continue in the Talmud to say, no other commandment in the Torah, not to love God, not to keep the Shabbat, not to circumcise our sons, not to refrain from eating non-kosher food, not the prohibition against lying or stealing. None of these is mentioned as many times as the commandment to treat the vulnerable with dignity. This is part of our foundation of our teachings of who and what we are. And we don't need to reach back into ancient history to find examples of persecution, pain, and systemic racism. Jews in America have been targets of quotas, of restricted communities, of being singled out, vilified, shut out from white Christian American culture. Jewish doctors, lawyers, scientists, professors all knew what it felt like to be ridiculed, excluded from practices and tenure tracks. And it is not through happenstance that Jews were early allies in the civil rights movement. We who are living in the shadow of the Holocaust were so sensitive to the sight of persecution and hatred. We saw white men and women spitting on black children. We watched police sick dogs on nonviolent protesters. We empathized with the ways in which black people were officially, legally treated as less than white folk. Many Jews got involved, marching, representing, supporting, being allies of the civil rights movement. But as the gap between white and black continued to grow, as Jews moved away from city centers and gained acceptance in the larger white Christian culture, the alliance we had known with black social and political organizations diminished. Not disappeared, but diminished. The days of the Freedom Riders, of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel of beloved memory, marching beside Martin Luther King, those are all true, and there's so many more examples. But I think in some ways, for us, it's almost like nostalgia. It's almost like looking back, oh, look what we did. And we did so much. But to use it as an example from the past of current Jewish wokeness is stretching it just a little bit. We're facing a new challenge, and we are faced with new opportunities to respond. As we did more than 60 years ago, we can step up as allies to the black community. As different as we might be, the foundation of that relationship remains the same. A love of justice, compassion for those who are objectified and shut off and shut out, and a deep antipathy to racism. It is now up to us to reconnect to the latest incarnation of the civil rights movement as it is expressed in the media and on the streets. The civil rights movement today finds expression through the phrase, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not really a political organization, as some might think. It is more to the point, a statement, a rallying cry, a simple, profound truth. It has embodied a movement that focuses on injustice to people, to real human lives. Now, I've heard white people say, whether it's on TV or amongst themselves, they say, you know what, all lives matter. Of course they do. Of course all lives matter. Or rather, they should. But if you ask a black person in this country that it feels that way, that their lives matter like anyone else's, I feel certain they would say it does not. Black lives have been devalued in this country, devalued legally, ever since the first Africans were brought to this country in chains. It's sobering to realize that the baseline message of Black Life Mattering has been running for generations. From Sojourner Truth's anguished question, "Ain't I a woman?" in 1851, to the black sanitation workers in Memphis proclaiming, "I am a man" in 1968, to Jesse Jackson's revision of that declaration with, "I am somebody" in the 70s and 80s, to the hashtag Black Lives Matter in 2013. The phrase Black Lives Matter is shorthand. It is an urgent call for recognition of terrible inequities and injustice. There is no controversy here. There is no other side, no balance to this conversation about the history of black folk in America. There is no other side about income disparity and redlining. There is no other side of the story about subjugation and slavery and Reconstruction. There is no other side to how Boston was a center of slave trade in the early years of slavery. It is simply this: wrong, immoral. It is unthinkable. So it's not, well, does it really exist? Is it so bad? Yes, it does exist. Yes, it is so bad. And so, what are we going to do about it? The essayist Aaron Aubrey Kaplan wrote back in July, "It's one thing to declare your support for Black Lives Matter with a lawn sign, and quite another to give up segregated schools or always seeing yourself and people like you as the center of the moral universe. The privilege to not engage is one that many may be loath to give up, even if they believe engagement is the right thing to do. We are engaging as a temple community in the struggle for human rights, for equity and justice. This is an issue long past due for us to take seriously. In the coming days and weeks, you will hear from me, from Margie Ross Dector and Susie Willard, co-chairs of our Tzedek Committee, regarding opportunities for engagement. Already 25 TBA members have actively embarked on this journey, the journey to becoming an ally, to being anti-racist. We will explore new territory. We will venture forth together as we honor our TBA tradition of performing acts of social justice. So how will we do this? We will learn together. I think of myself as a well-read person, and I like to believe myself to know a lot. And I am profoundly ignorant about the Black experience in America. It's shameful. And so, and I know I'm not alone. We all went to similar public schools, baby boomers. I don't even know what kids are getting now, but we might have gotten one lesson that talked about slavery for 20 minutes, that it was bad and that families were separated. Then I watched Roots, and that's pretty much what I know. And it's unthinkable. I think we expect Americans to know so much about Jews and the Holocaust, and we believe that they should. But we have to understand that the boundaries of what we're supposed to know about pain and suffering and anguish, it doesn't begin and end within our own community. It must lead us to understand the struggles of others. So we have to learn about this experience. We have to engage. And I'm hoping in the weeks ahead that you will join me in trying to right this wrong of ignorance. I'll be asking you to join me in reading the 1619 Project, published in the New York Times, a brilliant and disturbing collection of essays that all children in America should include on their curricular studies. We will read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, that every family in this congregation was offered as part of the Newton Lane Memorial to educate our congregation in an ongoing way. The book is challenging. You'll agree with some things, you'll disagree with others. That's great, that's the idea. It is to break open that shell of ignorance and engage. Ibram Kendi's book is meant to provoke questions, even as it will also be a guide. So we'll learn together. The second thing we'll do is we'll listen. Now, I know Jews love to talk. I'm a practitioner. But we need to stop and listen to narratives we have not typically taken the time to hear, to even find. One of the things we're doing projecting forward is producing a podcast from the temple. And it will be called The People in Your Neighborhood. And one of the first people that will be interviewed is a member of our congregation, part of the neighborhood, Jacob Deitch, a young man of color who is a member here, went to Israel this past year, and I invited and he enthusiastically accepted the invitation to speak very personally about his experiences growing up in a biracial family and in our temple community. This is the beginning of an ongoing pledge to listen to the stories we must hear. I anticipate it will not always be easy or comfortable, but this is our work. What else will we do? We will internally synthesize this learning and listening into awareness and healing. Reading the 1619 Project, reading How to Be an Anti-Racist is not just for personal edification. Listening to the podcast is not for entertainment. It's a means towards an end. It's how we will pursue justice. We will take action. I know I'm a rabbi, maybe I'm also, because I'm a baby boomer, it's like we got to learn about it first. But I really do believe we can't go off in major action without first knowing more about what it is we're doing and why we're getting involved. But we will take action. We'll engage in the work. We'll aim at creating partnerships and doing what we can to create the possibility of lasting change. It's not about mounting a huge effort for attention so we can feel good about ourselves. Rather, it's about making a true and lasting and sincere contribution to alter what intractable blight on our nation and our community. Look, this is very ambitious. I get that. But I know we can do it. We have, over the years, committed to acts of social justice, and we have come through. This is another one of those moments. All of us, each and every one of us, is called to action. There'll be many different opportunities, many different ways to do this. And I know that COVID has forced us all, literally in the beginning, to be shrunken down into our homes, into our spaces. And I think that that has, in a way, affected our sense of what's out there, what needs to be done. And I'm saying it's time for us to feel more expansive, to respond. I am really so happy that we have the Tzedek Committee, who are going to be already are great partners in this work. And I have to give a particular shout out to Margie Ross-Dector, who I shared this sermon with before I began to deliver it today. And she gave very helpful guidelines, encouragement, and some of the words I spoke are hers, just, full disclosure. And when we publish this, I'll make sure to put the footnote in just to be, straight up and honest about it. It is Yom Kippur, after all. Not only are we all fortunate that the Tzedek Committee with Margie and Susie will be leading us forward, we also have a fabulous individual, A.K. Ikwatkur. He always goes by A.K. because it's just easier. A.K. Ikwatkur, who you might have known if you watched the panel of the three black men we had speak to us directly after the George Floyd murder, to help us understand something about the context, the beginnings of this work. And he texted me after that panel and said, Rabbi, if there's any opportunity to work with your community, I would be honored to do it. And I thought, yeah. So AK will be working with us as well. He's a professionally trained facilitator, teacher, leader. He's a former top world-ranked athlete from the University of Oregon track and field. He's an entrepreneur, executive coach, global speaker, traveled to 30 countries, worked with a vast array of groups and individuals. He's been involved with, sports diplomacy, storytelling, athletic performance, fashion, virtual reality, leadership development, global education, business coaching, as well as other things. He's the real deal, and I think his energy and his sense of the world will be vitally, vitally significant to our work. I know that through our work with him, we will be able to gain greater clarity. AK will challenge us to attain knowledge and to be honest about ourselves as we step up and engage in this important journey. AK, who also read and commented on this sermon, says, the reality is there are no sides. There are only people. When people only look for people who share the same view we are speaking of, we are just looking for more people like us and distancing from them. Our challenge is to pop our bubbles, to not only share our story, but listen to one another's. We need to confront our biases and talk to one another. We need to invite others in. Together we will engage, we will learn how to have difficult conversations that will lead us to truly understand the destructive nature of systemic racism and to find common ground to make lasting change. Moving to the election, the world will get more and more divisive, more frightening. We cannot remain silent on the sidelines. We must act now more than ever with dedication to freedom, to end injustice. Yom Kippur is all about acknowledging our sins in the places where we did not do the right thing. It's a moment when we demand of ourselves a particular quality of candor and vulnerability. How appropriate then that this year on Yom Kippur, We recognize the ways in which we have not been allies, the ways in which the status quo, which has protected us, has hurt others. Just by doing nothing, we have participated in a racist system. I have come to see my own complicity through silence, through omission and commission, that I have been a racist. It took me a long time to write those words, no less, to say them out loud. But it's true. And it's also true that I want to become an anti-racist. I want to do the right thing with you. So I'm asking you on this Day of Atonement to step forward, step toward justice. If you have kids, bring them along on this journey. It's a necessary journey. It's about learning obfuscated truths we have not wanted to see or admit. Looking away is not justifiable. We know what it feels like when bystanders turn their backs, when they close the curtains. We know what it feels like to be consigned to the periphery. And we know that we ourselves participated in the same sin of detachment and hard-heartedness. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks once wrote, "Judaism is not so much a faith transacted in the privacy of the believer's soul, it is a social faith. It is about networks of relationship. It is about families, communities, and ultimately a nation in which each of us, great or small, has a role to play." We've heard the cry so many times, no justice, no peace, over and over again. And it is 100% true. And so it's our obligation upon hearing that to respond by affirming tzedek, tzedek tirdof. We shall pursue justice. We must pursue justice as God commands, as this day demands.
We're good to go? Action. Cool. So we can just kind of ease into it.
All right.
So you know what this is.
I do. It's a shofar. It's a ram's horn.
This is a shofar.
A shofar.
Yes.
A
Shofar.
shofar. Like
Yes.
chauffeur, but shofar.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to give this to you
Okay.
for this interview.
Sure.
Is that okay?
That's all right.
All right. Here you go, Mr. Piper.
Shofar.
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 Are you familiar at all with the holiday of Rosh Hashanah?
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of taking time to think about forgiveness.
Are there things in your life that you're reflecting on during this period? Not just with Rosh Hashanah, but we have COVID, we have Black Lives Matter.
For me, yeah, recognizing the inequity, recognizing the problem, and being willing to be part of the solution.
Are there instances that have happened in your life over this year where you're like, okay, maybe I need to ask for some forgiveness?
All the time. Lots of things. Both to my kids for losing my temper.
I carry a really heavy burden with my family.
I have a lot of friends who, they don't agree with me on the political spectrum.
I've made mistakes in my life, and I look back and like, gosh, I wish I would have did that differently.
It continues to come up this theme of like, I have to forgive myself.
Right. I have people in my life who I have tried to forgive, but they have not been willing to accept the forgiveness.
Admitting something's wrong, which might be the hardest part, but I think that's the seed.
Sometimes, when we get upset, we just hold anger in, not realizing that forgiving is for yourself, not for the other person.
I can choose to love you or meet you where you're at, or I can choose to not, but it is still a choice.
Yeah.
And if you hold on to the anger, you're just gonna drive yourself crazy. Because the other person, they're waking up every morning completely fine.
Any final words for the camera?
This is awesome. I think this is a really cool idea to have people stop and think about why forgiveness is important. Thank you.
So much.
This is lovely.
The morning service for Yom Kippur always ends with a little sense of whiplash. because it's not the end of Yom Kippur. Don't get excited. It's on for the next several hours. So there's no Aleinu now. There's no Mourner's Kaddish now. This is just essentially a semicolon in the day. Right after this part of the service stops, what starts next is the Torah service, and you can just roll right into it from here, or you can take a break and come back in and continue with it. And then at 11:30, we're going to be doing a Zoom family service. I invite you to click into that. Then this afternoon, I hope that you will take it. There are a few different things happening. One is we'll be running the cantata that I composed with David Leach last year for the Jonah story. And at the conclusion of the role of the music, then there's a conversation between the composer, the conversation with me. I always get me and I always have to think about it. Anyway, I'll be talking with David Leach about the music and how it was composed and what it's like to be a musician and composer during COVID time, and the way that it pushes him into all kinds of new and creative things. In addition, at 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon will be workshops that are going to be led by a combination. There'll be live workshops, and they'll be on Zoom, and they'll be with both members of our congregation as well as workshops that we're co-sponsoring this afternoon study session with from Temple Shalom. So that'll be going on as well. Yizkor begins at 4 p.m. Again, there's a link to the memorial board showing, and if you'd like to go to that at any time, you have access to that. And by the way, also we have a couple of beautiful links. There's a jazz link to go to that has both a fantastic music by our maestro, Jamie Saltman, and Mike, who just took a beautiful beautiful video of what happens in here. And then there is another room to click on, which is basically a view from the sanctuary, just sitting here and looking around the space. And again, Jamie's playing with that. And I have not been able to go more than about 3 minutes before I'm really overcome and overwhelmed. But I think it would be a good thing just in the course of the day to see all of that and to be inspired by it. Ne'ilah, the closing of Yom Kippur, will start at around 5:15. I say around, it's our plan to be there at 5:15. If Yizkor runs late, Ne'ilah will be a little late. That's the story of our congregation on Yom Kippur all the time. People say, when does it start, when does it end? When it starts and when it ends. So when 5:15 rolls around, don't forget to reach into that box that will look more and more to you, not like the box that was your toolkit. It's going to more and more look like a bakery box. But if you'll reach into that box and find your Havdalah candle, because it's there not just for decoration, but it's actually there for when we end Yom Kippur. We will light the Havdalah candle, marking the beginning of a new day as we emerge, prepared and invigorated. If you have not given to our food drive, you know that we collect food every year, and this year we've not been able to collect it easily in person, and food banks across the country, including in our area, prefer if we make either monetary contributions or send through Amazon, the variety of foods they're looking for. All of that is available to you online so that you'll be able to do that good deed. So we will be seeing you later on as we return.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, over and over again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
And before we roll, I just want to say how thankful I am to the crew that's here, to Matt and to Mike, to Amy, Becky, Stacy, of course to Susan, Josh, the maestro, all here for you, all here with you as we continue on this journey together. Every week we read from the Torah, and this portion comes up towards the end of the cycle of the Jewish year, and it's so beloved that we make sure it's included in High Holy Days as well. As far as I'm concerned, the reading from this Torah portion, Nitzavim, is one of the most inspiring of any in the entire Torah, because this is the Torah portion where God says very clearly, Atem nitzavim kulchem, you are all commanded to stand before me to receive this word of God. And the word is all. The entire community is present. The Torah is not in the hands of an elite few. The understanding of Torah does not belong to scholars alone. Very clearly, the Torah portion tells us everyone is part of this community. And in fact, it's interesting because our ancestors, upon reading this Torah portion that everyone was there, the rabbis in the 3rd century said, as a matter of fact, not only were our ancestors those who were in that first generation of the Exodus and the second generation, not only were they all present, standing, listening to this testimony being spoken by Moses on behalf of God, but they said the spirits of all those who had died in past generations were present, and the souls of all those not yet born, part of this extraordinary tribe of Israelites becoming the Jewish people. We were all there in this moment. We were all witnesses to this teaching, that we are one people and the Torah belongs to us and it guides us in all we are and what we do. And then an even I think, more amazing coda to this, the famous Jewish scholar Maimonides said, not only, as it says in the Torah, were all people included, not only, he says, were those people the rabbis speak of the 3rd century, souls in the past, souls of the future, all present, he adds one more category. Anyone who ever converted to Judaism or who will become Jewish, they too were present. They already belonged, even when they didn't even know it. And so I might even extend that medieval teaching a little bit farther to say our doors are open, our hearts are open, our Torah is open to all who want to be here in this number, to understand our sense of connectedness and our sense of obligation to make this universe one that we can be proud of and we can say is a holy and sacred space. Today, on this Yom Kippur, we always remember, Atem Nitzavim, you are commanded to be present.
Baruch es Adonai and Baruch, Baruch Adonai and Baruch Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bocha Banu Mikol Ha'amim, V'notan Lanu es Toraso, Baruch atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Atem nitzavim hayom kulehem lifnei Adonai Elohehem rashehem shivtehem ziknehem veshoterehem kol ish Yisrael tifnehem nesechem vegerecha asher bekerev machanecha mechotev etzecha ad shoev memecha leivracha bivrit Adonai Elohecha uvalato asher Adonai Elohecha koret imha hayom. Leman hakimotecha hayom lo le'am v'hu yelecha le'elohim ka'asher diber lach v'ha'asher nishba le'avotecha le'avraham le'yitzhak u'ya'akov v'lo itchem levadchem anohi korei et chabrit hazot ve'eta'ala ha'azot ki et asher yishnoho po imanu omeid hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu ve'et asher einenu po imanu hayom.
Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochi mitzavcha hayom lo niflet hi mimecha velo rechoka hi lo vashamayim hi lemor miya'ele lanu hashamayma vayikacheha lanu v'yashmienu ota v'na'asena v'lo me'ever layam hi lemor miya'avar lanu el ever hayam vayikacheha lanu v'yashmienu ota v'na'asena Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od beficha uvilvavecha la'asoto.
Ra'eh natati lefanecha hayom et chachamayim ve'et hatov ve'et hamavet ve'et hara asher anochi mitzavecha hayom la'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lelechacha bidrachav v'lishmo mitzvotav v'chukutav u'mishpatav v'hayita v'ravita u'rechacha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher atara Shama v'rishtav v'im ifnei levavacha halot tishma v'nidachta v'hidashtachavita le'elohim acherim v'avadatam. Yigadati lahem hayom ki avot tovedun L'tafrihun yamim al ha'adama asher ata over et hayarden lavo shama l'rishta ha'idoti barham hayom et hashamayim v'et ha'aretz ha'hayim v'hamavet natati lepaneha haveraha v'kalela Uvarharta b'haim leme'anti pie ata v'zareha le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha l'shmoa b'kolo uvtov kavo ki hu hayeha ve'oreh yameha la'shevet al ha'adama asher nishba Adonai la'avoteha Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Latet Lahem.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'haya haolam nita b'tohenu, bara Adonai notena Torah. Amen.
There is a past in every portrait. There is a truth in every tale. And all the days that came before us, there is the wind upon our sail.
There is a forest in every father as he stands amidst the wild. There is a mountain in every mother, her sturdy force of heart and mind.
Time